Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Etcetera with the Woodards. I am your host for the evening, Craig Woodard Sr., and this is episode 23. Can you believe it? It has been 23 episodes that we have done so far, and the last few have been very near and dear to me. So just to kind of catch up people that are watching all around the country, back on July 2nd in Erie, Pennsylvania, my cousin Marcello Woodard was gunned down by his parole agent. His parole officer came to do some type of compliance check. He was in his car. There were two agents there, two parole officers there, and he was shot and killed. Shot 3 times. Was deemed a homicide by the coroner, and 3 shots to the chest is what did it. The people of the city of Erie are trying to find out why. We're trying to figure out what was going on. The backstory here is that Marcello was set to be off parole come July 22nd, which was not long ago. He had 2 weeks left. He turned 44 on July 18th, and we have a lot of questions as to what's going on. Now, the reason why Erie, Pennsylvania and the community is so upset is because, well, we have no answers. The state police came out with one particular statement. They basically gave their view of what occurred, and their view was the fact that the officer, one of them, was being dragged by Cello as he moved the vehicle and tried to get away, is what they're saying. And so they opened fire, and they're saying that it's a justified shooting. Obviously, we know that that's not true. It's just very frustrating that we're sitting here waiting for answers, and we can't get anyone to answer us. They did try to put his fiance, who was not in the vehicle, they tried to put her against him. They tried to put her words against him. They twisted her words up based off of what she is telling us. They arrested her that night. She wasn't even in the car. She had got out of the car when this happened, and detained her. And she was at the police station all night being questioned. I could only imagine what they were saying to her. I can only imagine. And one of these days we'll have her on the show. That's Chanel Henderson. She's a wonderful person. They had a great relationship. So I want to set the record straight on her behalf. She came right out, and she even said it on the news, that they twisted her words, and she did not say that a parole agent was being dragged. That just did not happen. The news media unveiled the video the other day. It was a really good day to see that is being spread around to everyone for you to make your own decision about that. So that's really, really big. Look at the video. It's on my page, Craig Woodard Sr. You could also scroll on the Justice for Cello Coalition page. There's a number of us that have been leading the charge to spread the word, to get a lot of attention about this case and what's going on out there. A couple being, everyone knows, the twins, my cousins, Terry and Jerry Roberts. We have Cindy Triber, Malcolm Pulliam. We have Deontay Cooley, my other cousin, who's joined me here on Etcetera with the Woodards 2 times, and he will be back probably sometime this week. We'll have another episode with Deontay, very outspoken, and just love it, speaks his mind. And also my little cousin, Michael Woodard, has been out leading the charge at our protests and everything. So I wanted to give you guys the backstory of what actually happened, and the topic that I'm going to be discussing tonight is a couple questions here. So if you look on the Justice for Cello page on Facebook or my page, Craig Woodard Sr., you will see a couple of different clips there. Number one, I want you to look at the video. Look at the video. Look to the right-hand side of the screen. You see two vehicles pull up, and you can make your decision. But most importantly, we broke this down the other night. It's what you don't see in the video that is the most compelling. And what you don't see in the video is a parole agent being dragged. That's number one, okay? Number two, also look on there, and you will also see we posted, this is back from October, where we found it on social media, where the DA, Elizabeth Hertz, was doing a podcast with the alleged shooter sitting right next to him. So there's some type of a relationship that they have in order for them to join on a podcast together. And it raises some questions that I wanted to talk about tonight. Number one, how hard is it for a DA to file charges against a parole officer? You got to think about it. They're on the same team. They both work for the state. So you have the DA as the prosecuting attorney that is supposed to be the attorney for the people. So she's supposed to be prosecuting and bringing charges against the alleged shooter, which is on her team. That has to be hard to do. That could be a reason why we have not heard much. We've heard two statements from the state. We have not had a press conference to sit down and tell us what is on their mind. I mean, we would have even been a little satisfied with a press conference telling us what they've already told us on paper. But the fact that we've been disrespected so much to the point where we don't even get a press conference to let us know where they're at. We understand that the investigation is ongoing, and this is going to be a long process. We know that. We know this is a marathon and not a sprint. But for you to be tight-lipped and not say anything to us, that's really disturbing. And as Malcolm said, you know, we're holding the dogs in the cages, but sooner or later they're gonna break out. And so we're trying to tell you that, you know, we got things under wraps right now and everything is under control, but people are getting fed up. All kinds of people, all demographics of people in Erie are upset about how this has been handled. Now, I know it's sensitive because this is the first time a parole officer has shot and killed a parolee in the state of Pennsylvania. The very first time. And this is only the second time that this has happened in the country. Okay? So think about the dynamics of that. So, all right, I understand why this is taking they're taking their time, because you got one shot at this thing. You got one shot. So you got to make sure everything is right. However, you had the same video that we had back on July 3rd. The same video that we just released to the news, you had back on July 3rd. I don't, and this is before you even came out with your original statement and before you came out with the second statement stating that Shamel Henderson's statement corroborates what your original statement said, because the video shows no parole agent being drugged, plain and simple. All right. And then back in October, we find out that you're on the podcast, and I'm talking to Elizabeth Hertz, yes, the district attorney. You're on a podcast with the alleged shooter. So, yeah, this is probably really, really tough for you. And that brings me to my next couple of questions. Next question would be, why is this taking so long? All right. Number 3, does a personal relationship interfere with an unbiased investigation? All right. Now, I don't know how deep the relationship is. I know that you all were seen on social media together in a podcast form. I guess the way that I look at it is this is my 23rd episode, and I don't just have anybody on my show. My wife has been on this show with me, and my cousin's been on this show with me twice. There's a personal relationship with both of them, So, we don't know. These are questions that we don't know. We just see, and actions speak louder than words, and that's where we're at right now. Okay. Number 4, when should the district attorney recuse herself? For those of you that don't know what recuse means, that means remove herself from the investigation because of some type of relationship there that may prevent her from giving an unbiased decision. Okay, so that's what we're going to discuss, and I pulled some things online to read through for you guys to kind of let you know just where my mind is at and what I'm thinking as well. Because when you look through social media, and you can see on Facebook back in October, both the district attorney and the alleged shooter sitting right next to each other, there's a problem there. There's a problem. Why has she not visited the family? Why has she not comforted the family? She's the attorney for the people. Why has she not come out to any of the protests? It doesn't mean that you have to, be out there holding signs and stuff, but come out and give your condolences and show that your support. You're the attorney of the people. You're the one that's filing the charges against the alleged shooter. My other question is, why was Shamel taken to jail that night, but the alleged shooter was allowed to go home? I don't understand that. Like, there's a lot of questions here that we have. Protocol. Was his gun removed from him? Was the other parole officer's gun removed from him? Were they kept in separate rooms so that they could not come up with any type of joint story? That's what happens with suspects all the time. If you go to a bank robbery or a shooting and there's 2 people involved, they take one and put him in a vehicle. They take the other one and put him in another vehicle. They don't leave them in the same vehicle and let them come up with a plan as far as what they're going to say. Were these 2 separated? I understand right now that they are on administrative duty. So they're on administrative duty. They're still working and still getting paid while my cousin is in the grave. Doesn't make any sense to me. How is this possible? How is this possible? When I brought out case law, the state of Indiana versus Tim Thomas, who was an off-duty police officer who was at a party, and he shot and killed someone that was attacking him in self-defense, and he still got 16 years and he was arrested on the scene. The reason why the jury found him guilty is because they thought that he could have avoided using lethal force. And if that doesn't match this situation, I don't know what does. Number one, let's just say this parole officer grabbed on to the handle of the door. Let go. Is it possible that he could let go? Yes, I can answer that for you. He was trying to open the door. Okay, take your hand off the door. Is it the fact that you're saying that he was dragged in order to make the car be viewed as a weapon for this cover-up story? Because Hammond Hospital stated that he was treated for minor injuries and released. I'd like to see the pictures. Did he have any cuts and bruises on? I don't think so. I don't think so. Did you look at the video that was provided that shows that there wasn't an officer dragged in the video? That's number one. Number two, when the first shot went off, the vehicle was not even moving. Talk about poking holes in your story. How is an officer being dragged if the vehicle's not being moved? Come on now. Answer these questions. Answer these questions. We need an indictment, an arrest, and a conviction so that we can get justice for Cello. I want to read you something here. Filing criminal charges against the parole officer, while not impossible, is a complex process with significant hurdles. The district attorney must have probable cause to believe a crime has been committed by the parole officer. This is a higher standard than reasonable suspicion and requires enough evidence to lead a prudent person to believe the parole officer is guilty. When you look on the video, you can see the second parole officer get out of the vehicle, and he's already got something in his hands, and it appears, based off of his shoulder position, that he is already holding his gun. Why would you get out of the car holding your gun already as a parole officer on someone that you know that is about to be off parole in the next 2 weeks? Y'all got some splaining to do. Y'all got some splaining to do. Here's a breakdown of some of the challenges. Evidence gathering. The DA needs to gather sufficient evidence to prove the parole officer's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. This may involve a thorough investigation, potentially by law enforcement or other agency, which can be time consuming. Okay, we understand that part of it. Now, the onus of proof is on the state. The onus of proof is on the prosecution office. The onus of proof is on the DA's office. When they file these charges, this is what they have to prove in court. The defense only has to prove reasonable doubt. That's why this video is so crucial, because the state has already came out and stated that the parole officer was being dragged. If the parole officer in their mind was being dragged, they're using the vehicle as a weapon, then they're justifying the shooting. But when you look on the video, the first shot rang out before the vehicle even took off, and you do not see a parole officer being dragged in the video. Those are key components of this investigation, and personally, I think enough to render an arrest. Okay, standard of proof: the DA must be confident in the evidence to meet the beyond a reasonable doubt standard, which is a high bar. Potentially for immunity, parole officers, like many government officials, may have some level of immunity from lawsuits or prosecution, depending on the circumstances and the nature of the alleged offense. All right, let's move on here. I got some other stuff I wanted to read here. It does talk about time constraints. Investigations and charging decisions can take time, and there may be statutes of limitations that apply to the alleged offense. In summary, while it's not impossible for a DA to file charges against the parole officer, it requires a high burden of proof, a thorough investigation, and careful consideration of legal and political factors. The process can be lengthy and complex. Okay, so we've already broke down the proof that the state can use to file these charges, and the video and the witnesses, their eyewitnesses that were out there. There were kids that were still out there. I know it was 10 o'clock at night, but it's summertime Kids and adults on the street, 27th and German overtook Parade. My one cousin lives on that block as well. So there's a lot that needs to be done. First of all, the investigation can be done while they take a shooter, a murderer, an alleged murderer off the streets of Erie. That's number one. Number one. I just don't understand how Tim Thomas in Indiana, a white police officer, was arrested on the scene and then given ultimately 16 years because the jury said that he could have done something differently than using lethal force. You don't think that that could have happened? Let go of the car if that was the case, right? How about do nothing, let him leave, and then if you're going to charge him the following day. You know, there's no reason why Marcello had to die that night, plain and simple. And that is all that the state has to prove, is that the parole officer could have done something different than use lethal force. That's it. That's it right there in a nutshell. All right. When should a district attorney recuse themselves? A district attorney should recuse themselves from a case when there's a potential or actual conflict of interest that could compromise their impartiality and fairness. This can include situations where they or their office have a personal or professional connection to the case, the defendant, or a key witness. Now, I take you back to the video that we have posted on our page, Justice for Cello, also at Craig Woodard Sr. You can look at it there. You have the DA, Elizabeth Hertz, as well as the alleged shooter who's sitting right next to her, getting ready to do a podcast back in October. Let me read this again. A district attorney should recuse themselves from a case when there's a potential or actual conflict, of interest that could compromise their impartiality or fairness. This can include situations where they or their office have a personal or professional connection to the case, the defendant, or a key witness. Here's some more detailed breakdowns. Conflict of interest: if the DA or their office has a personal relationship, financial interest, or prior involvement with the case, they must recuse themselves. They must. This ensures that the prosecution is not influenced by personal bias or relationships. I don't know how much more I can say. We have proof that these two were on a podcast together. There's proof that they have some type of relationship together to be able to coincide on the same wavelength on a podcast. Is that something that should be considered in this particular case? Are the people in the city of Erie worried that the DA will not be unbiased in her decision? Is that something that's taking them so long? Was that something that influenced a rush to judgment statement that they came out with, even though the video was given to them? Is that also a reason why they tried to use Shamel Henderson's words twisted up against her fiance, Marcello? Is that why they did that? Is there going to be some type of cover-up? If there is a cover-up in this case, what's going to happen? Where does that leave everyone in the city of Erie? Where does that put our faith in the justice system? We have a DA who was sworn in and read an oath. She's the attorney for the people. Are you able to be unbiased, or should you recuse yourself? Impartiality: even if there isn't a direct conflict, if the DA's impartiality could reasonably be questioned, what have I been doing all night? Questioning, right? Let me read that again. If there isn't a direct conflict, if the DA's impartiality could reasonably be questioned. Recusal is necessary. For example, if the DA has publicly expressed strong opinions about the case, it may be appropriate to step aside. Key witness: if the district attorney or a member of their staff is likely to be called as a witness, they must recuse themselves. This avoids the appearance of impropriety and ensures the integrity of the legal process. Appearance of impropriety: even if the DA doesn't believe they are actually biased, they should recuse themselves if a reasonable person viewing the circumstances would perceive that they might be. That is what we've been talking about all night. All night. Do you think that we are going to get an unbiased decision by this district attorney, Elizabeth Hurts? The question remains unanswered. Thank you for joining me tonight. My name is Craig Woodard. We'll see you next time.